Today, we're going to talk about punctuation. And I've put down two questions here. Why is it important in scientific writing? And why do you need to know about punctuation? Now, the important thing about scientific writing and punctuation is because there are certain rules within creating a sentence to make it comprehensible. Just like when it comes to paragraph structure, there are certain rules, and those rules are you have to have a topic sentence, supporting sentences, and a concluding sentence in order to get a comprehensive and understandable paragraph. So you need to know about punctuation because it helps to make understandable sentences which are going to be within your paragraph. I just want to use an example. And let's just move on. No, it doesn't want to move on. Let's go here. There we go. An example, commas matter. If we say, let's eat grandma, it means that we are going to eat grandma consumed by the fork. But if we say, let's eat, comma, grandma, you're inviting grandma to come and partake of a meal with the rest of the family. On the other hand, on this side, why hyphens matter? Let's say you want to buy a little desk to put next to your bed. So you put in an advert, wanted one night stand, because this little set of drawers is a one night stand. But if you say wanted one hyphen night stand, means something completely different. So this is just to show you that where you put in your punctuation marks, it can make the world of difference. Definitions of punctuation is there are marks, there are signs, and there are symbols which clarify meaning, aids to the understanding and correct reading of a written text, and also shows how sentences are constructed. So that's what punctuation is all about. Now, before we talk about punctuation, I just want to start at the very beginning, the start of your sentence. It's extremely important to capitalize the first letter of the word starting a sentence, as you can see here. For these reasons, the author embarked on a study of platinum-based candidates. Or else you can see here, capital C, cobalt chloride was used for this experiment. But there's more to capitalization than just the start of the sentence. So let's, in the next slide, go on to other places where you capitalize in your writing, and then we will go on to punctuation proper. And we'll discuss what happens at the end of the sentence, now that we talk about the beginning, which has a capital letter, the beginning of the sentence, and what happens in between the capital letter and the end of the sentence. Okay, there are more than 9 rules of capitalization, but I've just left it at 9. As I said, you capitalize the first letter of the first word. Proper nouns, names, all get capitals, like the Lister Laboratory in Pennsylvania, capital L, capital L. You all know that your first name and your surname are capitalized. Titles are capitalized, and this is very important. References to chapters, figures, tables, and sections in your dissertation get capitalized. Capital C for chapter, capital T for to, capital F figure, capital S section, capital T for table. Locations and direct addresses are also capitalized. If you're, say, for instance, looking at air pollution, and you want to place a device at the corner of link, capital, and roads, capital, streets, capital, also avenues are capitalized in Bertram's. That's the way you write it. And the device is now going to measure the air quality. Months, days, and holidays are capitalized. Trademark names, capitalized as well, a Canon camera. Sometimes, in certain cases, such as the gel microscope, the entire word might be capitalized. Acronyms, which is how you abbreviate or shorten certain terms SMAs, which stands for shape memory alloys, get capitalized in full, and World Health Organization as well. And then you also capitalize I as a pronoun, and that you know as well. Now, just by the way, there's a lot of reading to do on each slide. So I suggest you just press the pause button so you hear what I say, and then pause the button so you can read properly through these slides. And then you move on. Now, what happens at the end of the sentence? And I'll be working into punctuation proper. And I've used this wonderful graphic to illustrate the punctuation and to actually direct the talk on punctuation. What I like about this is they've arranged the punctuation marks from the simplest, or the ones which do the least, only have one function, to those which have the most, which is the comma. And so this is why you can see the comma bar is so much longer than the period. And here is a quick note of what each of these punctuation marks do. Now, I'm not going to go into all 15 because that's going to drive you and me absolutely crazy. So ending your sentence, it's always marked by a full stop, or if it's a question, it ends with a question mark. There is always a character space between a full stop and the next sentence, always that. And the references are included before the full stops, whether it's in Vancouver or whether it's in Harvard referencing. I must say here that some journals do something different, but for your purposes, the reference fits within the full stop. An asterisk, the little star, it's commonly used to signal a footnote. And in this example of the table, here is an asterisk. It indicates the footmark down there. And it is just going to explain to you why in this column you've got classes 1, 2, and 3. And if you look at the footnote, the classes are defined in table 2. So if you want to get more information, you go to table 2 about these primary utilizations. Colons and semicolons, what is the difference? The colon is the 2 dots. It usually indicates a list as far as you guys are concerned. And take a look here. DeLay proposed these transformations could be subdivided into 3 main types, colon, and here she has numbered them 1, 2, and 3. A colon is also used prior to a quote, and also in scientific terminology, it indicates ratios or also time. A semicolon is a full stop with a little comma underneath it, or a dot with a comma underneath it. And this is a very important signaler to the reader, and which you can use as a writer, that there are 2 equally important related ideas coming. So in the sentence, the system has 3 beam launchers, semicolon, be alert. 2 are in the 2-tube combiner, and 1 is in the OTP receiver. So 2 equally important balanced ideas. It can also be used to separate sentence elements which contains commas. So in the United States, there are 92 scanners, semicolon. In Europe, comma, 85, semicolon. In all of Africa, comma, 6. So you can also see here, even though there are 3 items there, it gives equally important ideas. So this is very often used as a signaler to alert you. Parentheses and brackets. Parentheses are these what we call round brackets very often in South Africa. Brackets, square brackets, we call them square brackets. The Americans entitle them something differently. Now, brackets give additional information of secondary importance. And if you read this sentence, you can see what is bracketed. You can leave this bracketing part out because it doesn't actually contribute to the understanding of the sentence. I'll leave you to read that after you've paused. Square brackets set off an explanatory reference, which is often your own comments or a Vancouver reference. So here and I'll leave you to read this, it is quite clear that the writer wrote this about proton energy levels, and then your own comment was there was someone called Lightman who did experiments which might have contradicted Smith's statement above. I know James was lost. This word was not in the text originally, but there might be many guys around, James and Clive and Michael and Simon, but the person who was lost was James, just so that you know it was James. And Thomas, in square brackets, Vancouver reference, goes to make further suggestions on sample size. Quotation marks, they're often called a double quote in South Africa, and you also get single quotes. We'll go on to that in a little while. It indicates terms. The term scientist, in inverted commas, did not exist until 1834. And if the quotation is long, or it also, let's rather first do that, it quotes someone else's words. So here you can see that Thomas has qualified a statement in inverted commas, in quotation marks. I have based my estimates quite a few years of close observation, what seems to be acceptable to thesis examiners. Now, citing quotations is extremely correct, extremely important to avert plagiarism. But now what is important here when it comes to quotations, if a quotation is more than 2 lines, you don't need to put it into inverted commas or quotation marks. You just indent that entire passage, and you don't have to use quotation marks. The apostrophe is like a quotation mark, but it's just one single one. We very often called it a single quotation mark in South Africa. And this is used when you've got a quote within a quote. And here's a quote from Sachs. But the man that he is discussing actually said this, and I've put it in blue just so you can see it. But ordinarily it would be an ordinary black text, but here you can see it's given single quotes because it's the quotation within the quotation. Apostrophes are also used to indicate possessives. Einstein's apostrophe theory, which means this is Albert Einstein's theory. If there were many people called Einstein who all contributed to the theory, it would of course be Einstein's without the possessive apostrophe. It is also used when a word ends with an S and you want to give it a possessive indication. So in this example here, supervisors, now if you put 2 S's, because we're talking about many supervisors who have schedules, it would look rather peculiar. So that's why you put supervisors with an S and an apostrophe. And it also is used when you contract certain words, shortens them. It's instead of it is, don't instead of do not. The hyphen is an absolutely lovely punctuation mark because it joins words together to make them compound, or else it uses a prefix to shorten an idea or a concept. Premarital contract instead of before marital contract. Re-examine instead of saying examine again, or intra-arterial, you're placing something within the artery. It also compounds words to make it quite clear to the reader what we are talking about. We're talking about a platinum-based shape memory alloy. So it indicates this compounding and that they form together. And they can also use hyphens when you talk about first, second, and third order equations. So this is a sequence. Finally, to prevent ambiguity, you can talk about 2-year-old girls, which means there are many girls who are 2 years old, versus 2-year-old girls. There are only 2 little girls and they are 1 year old. Now, when it comes to spelling out numbers which are joined together, we talk about 21 moving parts, but if there are 121 moving parts, only the 21 gets hyphenated because we only hyphenate two-digit numbers, the tens and the units. Now, the comma is the most hardworking of all punctuation marks. And there are all its functions, but we're only going to go into 4. It indicates a break in a phrase and ideas. So in this case, for the first time, so this is the idea that it's the first time this has ever happened, researchers have used DNA analysis. So that's why there is a comma there, 2 separate ideas, and it indicates a break. In 2004, 153 cases had been diagnosed. Now, without that comma, there'd be 2 numbers, large numbers, one following the other. And that would make your brain seize if you saw that. That's why there's the pause placed there, because of the comma. Now, words such as however or nevertheless or moreover are used as linking words which tell you there is more to come. This signals to the reader there is more to come, be alert. So that's why in this case we use moreover, and this is just an example, comma. The opening of East London Harbour would help expand the export market. So it is used in conjunction with these linking words which are saying there is more to come. Commas are also used to separate words into a list. Now, this is the example which I used when I discussed the colon, but Delay proposed that transformations can be subdivided into 4 main types. Here, allotropic, comma, polymorphic, comma, body-centered cubic. There's no comma there because there's an and alpha face-centered cubic to face-centered tetragonal. Now, you must be very careful when you use commas to separate a listing, because if it's going to be a complicated listing like this, I suggest you do a numbered or bulleted list. And finally, like brackets, commas can be used to indicate something which is of secondary importance. So if you read here, infectious diseases, and you leave that out, have returned with a vengeance, you can really leave out which antibiotics and vaccines once promised to banish. As a hint, if you're working in MS Word, go to Review and go to Spelling and Grammar. It's very important to put your cursor at the top of your document or at the top of a sentence or page which you want to have corrected. You click on Spelling and Grammar, and it will automatically pick up something that's incorrect in a sentence and highlight it, as you can see here. The error is, of course, table 2, which is 2 commas. A little box will pop up on the right-hand side, gives the error, gives what is correct, and it'll ask you if you have to ignore it or if you could change it. If you click on change, it'll automatically correct it with 1 comma. And below, there is an explanation of what was incorrect in that text. As we look down the page, we can see this little red zigzag indicates that there is no space after the comma. It doesn't understand WT percentage. Now, this is a case where you'll say, okay, ignore it, because that is an acknowledged abbreviation. Impurities there will be picked up as you go along because it's incorrectly spelt. Same conditions doesn't have a space between the 2 words. So this does help you to correct your punctuation, so use it. So now we're coming to the end of the talk. And remember, at the beginning of the talk, I asked 2 questions. Why is punctuation important in scientific writing? And I certainly hope I have told you about why it is and the signaling potential. The second question was, why do you need to know about punctuation? Heaven help you if you end up in hospital and they try and make you eat diarrhea. Of course, what should be written here is unable to eat, comma, diarrhea. You have diarrhea, therefore nothing by mouth. Finally, 2 tips. I suggest you download this graphic, print it out, and put it where you are going to write, just so it acts as an aid memoir of what your punctuation marks are and what they should be used for. The other book I can highly recommend, it's the Mayford Handbook of Technical and Scientific Writing. I've bought the book, but it is also available on the internet, and you can access all different things that I've spoken about punctuation and much, much more. So I just type in this title and it will send you to the website and you'll be able to use it. It is really fabulous. And it's got lots of very pertinent stuff and examples, lots of examples of how to do technical and scientific writing. Thank you. I hope you have enjoyed this, and I hope that you will this will help you in your writing.